Samsung Galaxy S7 has been the phone to beat, and the S7 Edge too, which we'll bring into this as well. LG's not having the best of year with the G5, but we may have a smackdown with that too. Anyway, these phones have a lot in common, including the price. They're both near the upper 600s. It's going to be even more expensive if you want to get the Galaxy S7 Edge. Of course, that's about $100 more. They both run on the Snapdragon 820 CPU, except for you folks overseas who get a roughly equivalent Exynos CPU. They both have 4 gigs of RAM, 32 gigs of storage, run Android 6 Marshmallow. They have a fingerprint scanner on the front. The battery is sealed inside, and they both have micro SD card slots. So much in common, the core features. Let's see what sets them apart now. So here we have two fine Android phones. Samsung Galaxy S7, obviously in the black color here. It's available in your choice of silver, gold, or black. And we have the HTC 10 that's available in silver and carbon, which is what we have, the kind of dark gray, and other colors, TBA, depending on your country and all that sort of thing. Similar size phones. The HTC is the thicker phone. Samsung's really good at making things thin, but roughly the same overall size, 5.2-inch QHD display versus a 5.1-inch. So one of the first important things that sets them apart is what's actually on the back, and that is Gorilla Glass. The black one shows fingerprints. Don't eat potato chips, don't eat french fries if you're going to handle your naked Galaxy S7, particularly in black. Anyway, glass front and back, beautiful looking with the metal on the sides, but more delicate. The HTC, of course, is a metal unibody phone, so it is the more durable one. If you're tending towards the dropsies, you know who you are if you are, the HTC might be a better bet there. As to which is better looking, I leave that up to you. I think they're both really good looking phones in different ways. Now let's slide in the Galaxy S7 Edge here. This is in a slightly different category because it's $100 more than these two phones, and it's a bigger screen. It's a 5.5-inch screen, so it's a little bit bigger phone, though Samsung did manage to control the size, particularly the width is not that bad. Anyway, this one is unique, not because it's in shiny gold bar gold right here, but the curved display. If you want a larger screen phone, if you're a phablety person, if you like the look of this screen, I can't blame you. It's really neat looking. It's different. It sets it apart from other phones. Well, then this one might be the phone for you, the S7 Edge. One caveat, and I know some of you are going to argue with me about it, but maybe it's just because I have really long fingers, but I am always accidentally doing things when I touch the edges of the phone. And that's one thing that I used to have the S6 Edge, and I actually switched over to the S7 because I got really tired of accidentally activating the screen. Next up is the screen. We have the Super LCD 5, which is really an IPS-like technology that HTC is using here. QHD resolution 2560 by 1440, and Samsung, of course, uses their Super AMOLED display, also QHD 2560 by 1440 resolution. For out-and-out brightness, the Samsung is it. If you're going to use this outdoors a lot, it has a very good high brightness mode. If you have it on auto brightness, it won't run at that high a level on manual brightness because they don't want you just tanking your battery life instantly. But it is the brighter display. Now the HTC isn't bad, and I can see it outdoors and even here in Texas where our sun is pretty strong, but difference. Vividness, the colors that you see here, you can see a little bit more zing in Super AMOLED always. It's a very colorful looking phone. Now the HTC has vivid mode by default, and this is certainly their most vivid display. I don't look at it and go, ooh, it's just not Super AMOLED anymore. It looks pretty nice. There's also an sRGB mode. Samsung has several different color profiles you can choose from as well, including sRGB if you actually don't want the extra vibrant colors there. So really, this one is up to you, but I think a lot of people at this point are just kind of in love with AMOLED displays, and if you are, well, Samsung gets that point. Both of these have fingerprint scanners on the front, and they have capacitive buttons, and you can see when you touch it right there, and they'll light up. Both of these fingerprint scanners work very well. Samsung is one of my favorites, say compared to the Nexus 6P or the LG G5, in part because I prefer it mounted on the front. I can wake up the phone without having to pick it up. The HTC, though, is my favorite. It is really right up there with Apple's fingerprint scanner for being extremely accurate, and also because it's a capacitive kind of button, so you don't have to press and click. Now, pressing and clicking isn't the end of the world, but the Samsung is a very stiff and clicky kind of button there, and sometimes that causes you to kind of squash your finger over the button and exaggerate your fingerprint or move your finger. Occasionally, it's still a very accurate scanner, but that can get in the way of recognition. And this is also a bit haptic too, so you get a a tactile sense of when you're actually using it. So I like that there. Now, if you turn these off, with Samsung, you have the optional sleep screen. Now, we'll just tap it right there. So you get the time and date. It doesn't show you notifications. With the HTC, it does absolutely nothing, which is not unusual for an LCD display, though LG has ventured into having a low-power sleep screen mode. But it fights back with having the double tap to wake. And there you can see your status and everything and the time. So you get more information there, but you actually have to do something. So I leave that up to you, which you find is more useful. Do you want the clock and the time all the time, or do you want to just be able to wake it up and see all of your information that's available on the sleeping screen? So both of these have micro SD card slots. Yay! And Samsung uses a single carrier up top here that you open with the pokey tool, and that you put both your nano SIM card in and your micro SD card in. HTC has one on each side. One's for the SIM card, the other is for your micro SD card. Less fiddly slots. They still have a back on them so the card doesn't kind of fall through with a hollow design there, but that's not real important. Most of us are not going to be taking our cards out a bazillion times. So both have expandable storage, that's good, and then they have the same amount of memory and the same amount of internal storage. HTC actually supports Android 6.0 Marshmallow's extendable storage, which means you can format the card and it'll be formatted as if it was an extension of internal memory. That's nice because, you know, some programs you still can't put on an SD card. That way you don't have to worry about that. You got one piece of storage, you can put everything on it. So a little win there for HTC. Now, the HTC might get some points for sturdiness just because it's metal, but Samsung fights back with water resistance and dust resistance too. So if you're outdoors, you play near the water a lot, this doesn't mean you can go swimming with the phone, but it means, say, you're working on the sprinklers and you get a little shower, it's not going to destroy your phone. Both of these, if you go out, you know, and it's raining lightly when you look at your phone, nothing's going to happen. But for this guy, I mean, you could even give it a rinse in the sink if you wanted to. And with the HTC, not a good idea. Don't do that. Do not do that. With that water resistance also comes dust resistance. So, I mean, I don't think lots of dust is a problem for many of us, but that's something else to keep in mind. Software. This is going to be a matter of personal preference. Disclosure coming up front here. I like clean phones with not much software on them. I'm kind of a Nexus person because of that often. But some of you have been using Samsung Galaxies for a while and you've become accustomed or even fond of TouchWiz. TouchWiz is a heavier software overlay. They customize the look of the icons, the look of the settings screen, just about everything. And Samsung is still loading, they got a whole folder there, some redundant applications there. They even have their own Samsung Pay if you want to use instead of Android Pay on there. And HTC went with no duplicate apps this time, and we applaud them there. It was always so confusing for people, and HTC had their own image editor. Of course, there was the stock Android one, likewise with the music player. So very clean, very light, very tasteful. You get blink feed for a news feed on that side screen if you want to have it. Everything else is just, when they enhance something, it's tasteful, it's to a point, and there's not much of it. Of course, for Samsung, they do have a couple of features that I really like the split screen multitasking. One could argue that on a small screen phone that it's not the most useful thing, but I think a lot of people like it, and I like Smart Stay a lot. The one that uses the front camera, keeps an eye on you, doesn't turn off the screen if you're taking your time reading. Cameras. Both of these have 12 megapixel cameras. This year, less is more. Instead of raising megapixels, they're actually improving quality, doing things like using larger sensor sites for better low light performance. Both of these have two-tone flashes that you can see right there. A little bit more obvious on the HTC, the way they've colored that one. Both are excellent cameras. Both offer you optical image stabilization. HTC adds a little something extra. They have optical image stabilization for the front camera too. Even if you're drunk when you're taking a selfie, it'll probably look better. If you're in dark environment, it's going to help, it's going to look better. Now for the main rear cameras, we have a couple of sample photos to slot in for you so you can see the difference between the cameras. Right now, the HTC is pre-release, and in fact, we just got a software update today. There probably will be more. My complaint with the HTC is it sometimes overexposes just a little bit. Only a little bit, but it does, and not all the time. And aesthetically, this really depends on you. Samsung tends to take more cool and high contrast photos. That's pretty trendy right now. That means more towards the blues, kind of. HTC takes warmer photos that that would be better for if you shoot a lot of people. People look more rosy, more healthy, that sort of thing. So you'll see those obvious differences, I think, in the pictures that we'll present to you. That said, they're both very good cameras. I think a lot of people are going to prefer the Galaxy for its higher contrast and it's more predictable exposure. Like I said, the HTC isn't messing up exposure a lot, but it's there just a little bit. But happily, unlike last year's HTC One M9, which was just kind of everything was wrong with the camera processing software, fixing something like exposure is super easy, and I do hope that they do that with the software update. Next, we have the geeky features here. Well, to a certain extent anyway. The Samsung Galaxy S7 and S7 Edge have a micro USB 2.0 port. Old-fashioned, been around for a while, and one of the reasons they went with that is so they can support the Gear VR, virtual reality headset. So if you want to use the Gear VR headset, well, then that's a good thing, isn't it? It's not as powerful a port. It does support quick charging, however. HTC kind of really did a nice thing there. We have a USB-C port, and it's actually USB-C 3.1, not just 3.0 like the Nexus 6P. So not only does that support fast charging, it supports USB peripherals. So we actually have the same adapter that we use with laptops. It's a USB-C to HDMI adapter. That works just fine, USB-C to USB, so if you can plug in hard drives, flash drives, that sort of thing, that works. Even this, which is actually the Lumia display dock, connects via USB-C on the front right there, supports charging, so you plug in the charger there. This works too, so I was able to plug in a monitor, then plug in a flash drive, access the files, have a slideshow on a big monitor. So kind of nifty, also kind of geeky. I don't know how many of you are going to be doing that with your phone, but if you like that feature, it's there on the HTC. However, there's no Gear VR headset. You'll have to go buy an HTC Vive and plug that into your high-end PC if you want a VR experience. Now, speaking of quick charging and all that sort of thing, both of these support quick charging. The Galaxy S7 supports Qi wireless charging. I know some of you absolutely love that. You hate to plug the thing in, you just plop it down on the Qi charger and you're good to go. Metal back phones like this do not support Qi charging. The metal actually would be an issue there. So if you want Qi wireless charging, it's going to be the S7 because the HTC does not support that feature. In terms of battery life, again, we have pre-release HTC 10 here, but still it's pretty far along. I mean, it's going to be released in a couple of weeks to the general public. Battery life is not as good as the Galaxy S7. It's not terrible. It's a little erratic right now, and I do suspect there's going to be at least one software update before this releases to take care of that. But historically, HTC phones in the 1 series, the M8, the M9, have not had stellar battery life. They've had okay battery life. This is a phone that has okay battery life. The Galaxy S7 with the same use, say, I can go from morning until night and it's not in the red zone begging to be charged at 10%. With my HTC 10, it is in the red zone by the time I go to bed at night. So you get the idea there. In terms of actual screen on time, it really is going to depend on what you're using these for. I'm starting to become leery of comparing them in that way, but I would say that so far from what I've seen, the Galaxy has about a half an hour more actual screen on time use. And last but not least, I know that you high-quality audio fans, you audiophiles, and those of you who are into the HTC 10 are like, well, what about the audio quality? Come on, come on. Well, here it is. The HTC 10 has really superb audio quality through headphones. They have a 24-bit high-quality audio DAC. They have a separate amplifier for the headphones. That's an HTC thing. They're really into audio quality. Boom sound speakers have changed here. You have the tweeter up top and the woofer at the bottom. The Samsung has decent audio quality. It's not bad at all, but it's not nearly as good. It has a single mono speaker at the bottom. And we'll just play a little bit so you can hear the built-in speakers. It's fairly rich sounding for a phone, but it is still a phone when it comes to the speakers on the HTC. Well, I guess it would be nice if I could. And you can hear the difference there. That the Samsung sounds much more like your average phone, a lot thinner. There you go. Audio quality, hands down. HTC, don't think anybody's going to argue that point.